What up? It's your boy T-Bear from Reaction. Today's Music Money about to get to a new video from the homie L Kitchen, Loop Kitchen, L Train, and this is their latest one. If I can get to it, this is latest one. Well, if I can get the title of it, highlighting one of the most underrated producer of all time of the modern era as well too. Now, a lot of folks say guys like Jay Dilla and New Jabbies are like the godfathers of lo-fi hip-hop. Well, this over there, you can keep seeing like the prince of lo-fi hip-hop, or even slightly the king. Wherever is under godfather of lo-fi, this guy is it right there. It is none other than the legendary in the making Flying Lotus. So this is how Flying Lotus redefined what instrumental hip-hop could sound like. Let's get it. Please don't be here. All right, cool. Let's get it.
In October 2008, Steven Ellison sat beside his mother in a hospital room and did something that sounds on paper like the opposite of music. He recorded the room itself. That moment would help shape Cosmogram, the album that came to define Flying Lotus. But his story started long before that. Coming from a family steeped in jazz, with Alice Coltrane as his aunt, and later finding himself at the center of LA's emerging beat scene. This is the story of how he moved beyond his family's legacy and built a sound entirely his own. Steven Ellison, better known as Flying Lotus, grew up in Winnetka, out on the western edge of the San Fernando Valley. And growing up, music was always a part of his life.
There's this video of me when I was a little kid. It was like my mom, my grandma asked me questions. I was kind of in this little interview moment, and then I think there was some Stevie Wonder that kind of turned on in the background, and you just saw that I was like perked up and just was like, I'm out of here, and I just went toward the speaker.
That grandma was Marilyn McLeod, a Motown songwriter who helped write hits like Diana Ross's Love Hangover.
Okay. My mom-in-law's favorite singer.
Even deeper than that. Marilyn's sister was Alice Coltrane, which meant that for Steven, one of the most visionary figures in spiritual jazz was family.
I knew her as a very spiritual person. Throughout my life, I heard she was a musician. She did some things with John Coltrane. He was the one everyone wanted to talk about. More than a musical mentor, she was like my spiritual advisor.
He grew up going to her ashram on Sundays. Meditation, spiritual discourse, then hours of music led by Alice on the organ, surrounded by percussion, shakers, and voices. But for all the soul and jazz around him, the path that seemed most obvious was never the one that pulled him in.
I played video games a lot, and those things would go for like hours and hours. My mom, she would always say that's where I got it from, all that time spent playing those video games. There was a lot of music in my family. It didn't really feel like me doing the jazz stuff, like straight jazz and shit. I wasn't really into the saxophone as much.
That's not to say that he didn't try, but early on it became clear that the way music was being taught to him wasn't where he heard himself.
I went to school and I studied, but we weren't playing enough shit that I wanted to play. It was like a bunch of fucking corny ass tunes, and it wasn't encouraging me at all.
Still, those classes weren't a complete dead end.
I was in that class hearing drum and bass for the first time. There was a kid who played the tuba, and he played drum and bass for me the first time I ever heard it. I was switched on from that experience.
Wow.
It was a first glimpse of something outside of the world he'd been taught. But closer to home, another sound was starting to make everything click.
I think I really just fell in love with the music stuff when I started hearing melodic hip-hop stuff that Dr. Dre was doing. I really got switched on to the idea of making music for real.
For a young Flylo, this was the first music that really felt like his. And not long after, his cousin began introducing him to the gear behind it.
My cousin, he's a guitar player. He made a lot of music on his computer, and he had all these drum machines and whatnot. And he started passing me things because I'd always be at his house playing video games.
In a family full of musical giants, Steven Ellison was starting to hear a way forward that actually sounded like what he heard in his head. All right, quick pause here.
Already?
If you make music on a Mac, you'll probably
This is the
relate
first time
to
doing it
this.
early.
If you've been using your computer for a while, you'll know how quickly projects, stems, and sample packs start piling up. You've got old bouncers everywhere and folders called things like Final Mix, version 3, Actual Finish.wav. And over time, all that stuff starts to slow things down, which is why I've started using Clean My Mac.
Oh, okay, it's a sponsor.
Video. It's a tool that helps your Mac run smoothly by clearing out system junk, finding duplicate files, and showing exactly what's taking up space on your drive. For producers, it's especially useful because it can spot those duplicate stems, old exports, and the sample packs that are quietly gathering dust in the background. One feature I love is Space Lens, which visually maps your storage so you can instantly see what's eating up space. And if your cloud storage is anything like mine, full of old gig videos you haven't watched since the day you recorded them, Cloud Cleanup helps you clear that out so you're not having to constantly upgrade for more space. The whole idea is simple. You focus on the music, and Clean My Mac keeps the system running smoothly in the background.
Nice.
So if you want to try it out, there's a 7-day free trial, and you can use my code LTRAINMUSIC for 20% off. And the link for that is in the description. Anyway, back to the story. By the time he turned 18, music didn't feel like the obvious future. For all the sounds and influence that had shaped him, the thing he chose to study was film.
I was getting to be like 18 and it's time to start thinking about your future. And for whatever reason, I was like, I think I would rather just make movies or study film. So I went to film school, went to college.
But college ended up opening a different path altogether, showing a new way into music.
I met this kid, Dr. Strangeloop. He showed me that you could make music on laptop. I was blown away. I started missing class, couldn't make tune. I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna move back to LA and just really focus on this film shit. And it just slowly became music.
So he moved back to LA, making music, meeting people, and trying to make ends meet.
I was doing photography. I met this guy named Lil Side, and he was doing this project with MF Doom, and he heard a couple things. And one day he freestyled over my tune, and I was just like, so fucking jazzed. He eventually passed my music on to Carlos Nino, who put together this compilation called The Sound of LA. I got my first release on that.
Hold on a second. Alright, let's keep going. Oh yeah, sound like yup. Oh, this joint, I remember this joint. Yeah, I simply remember this joint
He
here.
wasn't alone. A scene was starting to form around him, made up of like-minded producers and beat makers.
You started to see all these other producer, beatmaker kids who were kind of hanging around. We didn't care about rappers. We were just like, we're gonna do this without them. We just came for the beats.
Nice.
I think that freaked a lot of people out.
And the music itself felt different too. Looser than a lot of traditional rap instrumentals, with hazy textures, clip loops, and drums that didn't always sit where you'd expect. One of the first key parties to give that music a spotlight was Sketchbook.
It was a Tuesday night that Coop went through. We cats just hang out front of this place that is called Little Temple. Everybody chilling out front with DiBiase's boombox. We all bringing our CDs, shit we just made over the week. That's what really drove us at the point when the Sound of LA thing was happening.
You had these kids just making beats at home, now with a platform to showcase them. But now the internet was booming, and that made this whole thing international.
Dubstep was kind of popping at the same time. So it was like a new electronic thing was brewing. Wobbly stuff going on, calling it wonky.
Yup. Hudson Mohawk, yup.
It was the first time that LA and UK are connecting like this.
And then, in 2006, it found its first real home.
There was this party that started called Low End Theory that was
End Theory.
geared towards the sound, more of a producer's lounge, basically.
First started it in 2006. We were maybe getting 30 to 40 people coming through on a regular basis. We had about 2 or 3 years
I heard
really
about this
figuring
a
out
little
our
bit.
program down there.
At the beginning, it was small, just a few dozen people in a club in Lincoln Heights. But the sound system was serious, built for weight, detail, and sub-bass.
A young Flying Lotus and a young No Such Thing and a young Toki Monster and a young Gas Lamp Killer, and all in this tiny club in Lincoln Heights.
What made Low End matter wasn't just who passed through it, it was the atmosphere it
Shout out to
created.
my boy Sir E. Shout out to my good friend Sir E, who does stuff like this too. That didn't have like
venue
instrumentals.
where improvisation is welcome, where you have an audience that is gonna react to a bunch of different tempos. They're not just there for one thing. That's when you have an environment that's ripe for creativity.
Low End was like church, man. It was a very special thing, special time. They were allowing us a platform to say, no, this isn't just beats. This is actually the show.
And for Ellison, it was the first time his music felt fully understood.
I was just like, okay, I found my people. You know, I found my weirdos.
While the scene was building, Flylo was still steadily pushing his own music forward.
I was living at my mom's house, and the only TV I would watch is Adult Swim. One night I saw it, they had a little...
Oh yeah, yep. Adult Swim was pushing his joints heavy. I remember that. Yup. I was waiting for this. Oh yeah.
Got some beats, send them over. My mom was the one, she said, look, you put it together, I'll send it out. It seemed like the next week I got an email asking for a track list and they were playing stuff on the TV.
Yup.
At the time, that felt like a real break. A bit of validation that the music was landing. Things were starting to build, and then came another opportunity. A remix for the LA singer-songwriter Mia Doi Todd.
I met her a few times, she didn't remember my name. I was like, all right, I'll make this remix and she'll never, ever forget my name after that.
Oh yeah.
That brought him into the orbit of her label, Plug Research, and helped plant the seed for his first album.
I did this thing for Plug Research. They really encouraged me to give them the other stuff, not the stuff that I gave. You know, they wanted to hear the other shit, the weird shit. It flipped my whole wig. Like, they don't want to hear stuff they've heard already. So I put the record together.
That record became 1983.
Yup.
It was glitchy, off-kilter, full of warped synths, clip loops, and drums that never quite settled where you expected. As the music started reaching more people, the live side of it began changing too.
And we were supposed to play this big club in San Francisco called Club Mighty. We roll up to this club, and they're like, here's the little outdoor PA for you guys. I was like, I know y'all didn't just drive me down here to play on the motherfucking patio.
Right.
Koopma got out the van, he was like, we're just gonna make this shit dope. Koopma starts destroying this party. The whole club seemed to spill from inside out to this little patio area. And I got to play. It was really fun.
Nice.
I think after that, I started getting the phone calls and the emails.
By this point, the movement still wasn't fully understood. Sometimes it was treated like an afterthought, but once people saw it live, that started to change. Then came the next record, Los Angeles.
I love LA, and I feel like that record reflected how I felt about the city. The sound as well, it's definitely some LA texture in there. It's music for the freeway, it's music for being on that PCH or whatever, cruising in your whip or whatever.
Los Angeles took the off-kilter groove of producers like Dilla and Madlib and pushed it somewhere more psychedelic, more digital, and more distinctly his own. By the end of this period, you could hear Flying Lotus sound really beginning to take shape, but it was the next album where all of his musical worlds would finally collide. If Los Angeles was the record where Flying
Yeah, to
Lotus
see how
fully
tall he
came to
was. He's like, he was like kind of towering. Like he's 6'2". Okay, I can't say he gotta
the
be
next one
tall.
would ask a
But
much
he
deeper
was-
question.
'cause it's
What do you
dance.
do when everything you've been building suddenly collides with real loss?
Right when I started working on it, my mom passed away, really unexpected, and it just changed everything, man.
That loss sits at the center of this record. In the final days of his mother's life, Ellison brought a mobile recording rig into her hospital room and captured the space around her, the respirator, the monitor pings, the strange mechanical rhythm of that room. He later said he knew it was a strange thing to do, but he didn't want to forget that space.
I wanted to make an album that was really reflective of my spiritual journey, exploring my spiritual history of my family. The Coltrane lineage brings on a lot of pressure, and I wanted to rep my family well, show the world where I'm from.
To make the record as expansive as he imagined it, Ellison had to become more comfortable letting other musicians into the process.
Honestly, there was a big part of me that didn't feel comfortable with working with other people. I always felt like I couldn't communicate the musical language properly. But after working with Thundercat, I feel now
That's
that
what I thought it
can
was.
extend
That's what I
my
thought that
musical journey.
was. I'm like, wait a minute, is that what I think that is? Yup. There's a record that was with the hair though. This when he was a little chunky.
Is by reaching out to people and getting certain things out.
Earlier Flying Lotus records often felt like one mind pushing a laptop to its limits. Cosmogramma is different. The laptop's still there, but now it's sharing a space with live bass, strings, harp, saxophone, and vocals. Thundercat brought that now
Yep.
iconic bass playing. Miguel Atwood Ferguson came with the strings. His cousin Ravi Coltrane was on sax. Rebecca Rath added harp, and even Tom York drifted into the mix.
Nice.
And the real trick of the album was arrangement, bringing all of these players in without crowding the record.
He's got that kind of great ability. It's like a painter. You've got one color, and then you can add another and change that particular shade and change the energy of it all. So I was one layer in this very wild composition.
That's why the album feels so rich without ever becoming static. The live parts aren't just sitting on top of the beats, they're completely woven into them.
really wanted to just not focus so much on all the technical stuff. Though it's there, I really just wanted to make sure it was the most musical thing it can be.
However, sampling was still everywhere on Cosmogramma, just more submerged into the fabric of the record. Nozart takes an airy loop from the art of noise and bends it into something warped and floating. While Pickled keeps that sharper beatmaker edge alive through sped-up drums from the Lafayette Afro rock band.
I wanted to make a record that people would listen to forever. I wanted to do something that people would hold on to and try to find something more within the music.
After Cosmogramma, you could have stayed in that lane, but the whole point was to keep moving forward. That's what you hear on records like Until the Quiet Comes and You're Dead. That restless instinct didn't just shape his records, it also shaped his own label.
My label, Brainfeeder, it's an ever-expanding idea and a concept and a label. One thing I don't want to do is tread too much in the same territory. I really encourage the artists to go beyond their albums that they've released and try and do something a little different each time.
He wanted to help push forward the whole ecosystem, building a label around the idea that beat music could keep evolving rather than hardening into a formula.
Brainfeeder is that potential that I saw when I did
Highest
the first record.
Highest Coyote.
There was this
Cats
call
on the label.
for the sound, this future hip-hop, electronic thing, whatever. I felt like it was my
watch it
place,
too.
my responsibility to step up.
And that same openness kept pulling his work into unexpected places. From Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly to collaborations with artists like Mac Miller and Danny Brown. More than any one album or sound, that willingness to experiment is what really defined Flying Lotus.
The ideas will never stop. You'll be in a place of endless possibilities. I know for sure I got a billion beats, at least, in my head. Keep doing this shit. Have fun with it. You know, the more fun you're having, the more risks you're taking.
And if you want to see more stories like this, check out our Behind the Record series in the playlist.
Yeah, this was a good one as well too. Like I knew about Flying Lotus, but the deep more into this though, this was good as well too. Though. Like I said, definitely you have to consider like the Prince of Lo-Fi. You consider Lo-Fi as well too, but you know he's like more than just hip hop. He's all electronic as well, doing indie. So yeah, other than that, this was a good little backstory, on Flying Lotus. But yeah, if you like my reaction, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's your boy T signing off. One love.